What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and I'm coming to you again with another episode of Mazique Speaks. As I told you yesterday, we're trying to do this on a daily basis. So, whoever's coming through today, I appreciate you coming through, just like I appreciated the folk who came through yesterday. We're going to try to do this for an hour. I'm looking at that as I rearrange this overall YouTube presence. And before I jump into today's topics, which if you saw the title of the video, then you know some of the things I'm going to talk about today. But before I jump into that, I want to kind of get into some of the questions that I'm seeing on the channel. Obviously, you guys know, if you've been a long time subscriber, if you've been down with this channel for a while, you know it's going through a lot of different changes, a lot of different segments and categorizations and that sort of thing. Because I am Unique Mazique, which means I am interested in digging a lot of different things and like to share different topics and different opinions on some stuff. So one of the main things this channel has been founded on, and I've talked about almost, pretty much consistently throughout, is like basketball gaming. So NBA 2K live and that sort of thing. That's still obviously a part of my world. I still write about it for Forbes, and I still want to cover those types of things on YouTube. Someone just asked me yesterday, when was the next franchise fiction video? I'm still doing those videos, but I've just found that it feels like it's best to kind of put that on its own channel. So if you look at the description of this video, you're going to see that there are some links to some different channels. So there's links to a 2K franchise gaming for 2K videos. There's links to franchise football gaming, and that's for Madden videos, which I was doing on a whole separate channel. I'd been doing that for months. And then there's also one for baseball. Then there's stuff from when I just post straight gameplay with no commentary. That's there for wrestling. So you can see it. It's in the description. I won't belabor those points too much, but I did just want to throw that out there. And if you're down and you're interested in any of those things, absolutely go to the description and click on those links and subscribe to the channels that you are interested in. It's basically me committing the same amount of time, but just basically putting the videos where I feel like they can be best appreciated, because not everybody likes the same thing, right? So enough of that. Let's talk some Chicago sports right now. One of the first thing that I've really been noticing, I've been paying a lot of attention to what's been going on, obviously with both the Sox and the Cubs during this offseason. And one of the things that I'm focusing on key areas, right? I'm focusing on areas that I think are key for both teams' success. Now, we talked about yesterday, and I talked about in another video, how I thought that the White Sox offseason is one of the best off seasons in baseball. I mean, obviously, you look at what's happened with the Dodgers, and you know that that's pretty significant. And a few other teams have had really strong off seasons. But the White Sox, to me, have to be right up there. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them, but as I look at the Cubs, it's a much more understated offseason. I mean, the biggest talk about the Cubs in the offseason is something we talked about yesterday with Chris Bryant. Is he going to get traded or not? And, will the Cubs possibly go after Nolan Arenado? Whatever. But based off of what we know is on this franchise and what we know will be there next year, I think one of the biggest areas of concern and interest is what's going to happen at second base. I mean, we all know pretty much Javi has shortstop lockdown, but Nico Hoerner, in the time that he had on the field last year, I thought he was very promising. I was very impressed with just the way he conducted himself. I thought his effort, his energy was really a positive thing for the Cubs. As a matter of fact, I felt that the Cubs lacked oomph all year, and Javi actually kind of supported this, because he said that this was earlier this week. There was a quote where he said he didn't feel that the team was prepared every game. And from him, I don't think he meant like we hadn't read the scouting reports or we didn't understand what we were facing. It felt like emotionally, mentally, the team didn't seem like they were ready to go. They were ready to get out there and play. And I think some of that could have been the fact that, manager Joe Madden's voice kind of So he has a type of voice that seems like it can get old to a player or to a group after a while. And I think maybe every coach has that issue. And the Cubs probably needed some injection of new blood, of a fresh face and a fresh, guy that was there who was able to, kind of reinvigorate the clubhouse and reinvigorate the squad. Now, Nico Hoerner only played 20 games this season, so he's was 22-year rookie, so you really couldn't necessarily have, expect him to have that type of impact last year. But I think this year things could be different. But in the 20 games, in 82 plate appearances, he had 282, hit 3 home runs, hit 17 RBIs. He drew 3 walks and struck out 11 times, which is a lot, obviously, especially for a middle infielder. But I was impressed with what I saw, and I am very excited to see what happens with him moving forward. Now, the Cubs have signed to a veteran second baseman in Jason Kipnis. He is a Illinois native, and he is a guy who has had great success in the major leagues. But you have to look at him and you have to say, all right, what does he have remaining? In 121 games last year, he had 245 for the Cleveland Indians, which coming into this year was the only team he'd ever played for. He did crank out 17 home runs, which is good pop for a middle infielder, 65 RBI. He's not the stolen base threat that he once was. A lot of people don't realize Jason Kipnis stole over 30 bases twice, but that was in his mid-20s. He's now 33 years old. He'll be 33 at the beginning of April. And numbers have drastically dipped. He's never been a super, he had 1 year, it was a high average hitter. He hit 303 when he was an all-star in 2015. But for the most part, as a career, he's a 261 hitter. He also strikes out a lot, especially for a middle infielder. But that kind of stuff is kind of relative now because we look at strikeouts differently than we used to years ago. I don't think that from a glove standpoint, Kipnis has as high of I don't think he's as good of a fielder as Nico Hoerner can be if he's given the opportunity to really settle in at second base. So the question that I'm kind of posing, and I would love to hear other people's ideas and concepts on this, is are you more rooting for Nico Hoerner to blossom into this potential star at second base? Or are you really so much caught up in the now where you're like, I want Jason Kipnis to shine right now. I want Jason Kipnis to do his thing, have a great have a season that we thought was, maybe past him at this point because he's going to be 33 years old as the season starts. Which one are you most rooting for? For me, I'm going to tell you, as much as I would love to see Jason Kipnis come out here and hit 275 with 25 RBIs, 25 home runs and 75, 80 RBIs, which would be a spectacular season for him at second base at this age. And if you think that the Cubs only signed him, I believe, to a minor league contract, that would be a spectacular year. And that would probably go a long way in helping the Cubs contend. But I think the Cubs are in a place where having solid young players is more important than exploding and doing things huge now with a ton of with low cost veterans. Like, I would much rather see Nico Hoerner win the job, even if he doesn't have the same level of production as Kipnis this year. I would rather see him win the job, hit 265, maybe 17 home runs, drive in 60, play a solid second base, and we are looking toward, like, okay, we know where Nico Hoerner is going to be. This was a very solid first full season for him. And then you have Kipnis, who basically is a veteran off the bench, who can be a veteran pinch hitter, who can be a mentor to Nico Hoerner, who can start maybe 30 games during the season. Maybe he DHs in some of the games, the road games against American League or in the interleague squad, interleague games. That's to me the ideal setup. And and some people may think that there's no way that Jason Kipnis as a veteran is going to accept that level, that type of a role. There's no way. He's been around, played against the Cubs in the World Series. There's no way he's going to go for that. He's a former All-Star. But I don't know that that's the case, because Kipnis has already said that he is really looking forward to mentoring Nico Hoerner. Jordan Bastian from MLB.com wrote a story back earlier this week, a couple of days ago, and it says that Kipnis is eager to work with Hoerner in Cubs camp. So to me, obviously, Kipnis is the type of guy he obviously wants to play, right? And I mean, I wouldn't want anybody on my team who didn't want to play. But I love the fact that he is open to mentoring and helping a younger player that plays his same position, which tells me he understands the situation. Here's the quote he had. He says, "I'll get to know him." Kipnis said, "I know he came up and had pretty good success, so I think he's going to be a good he's going to be a competition. But at the same time, I'm not going to try to put him down. I like to work with him and kind of teach him what I know too, and hopefully both of us become better from it." That I think is pretty honest and nice, right? So then Hoerner comes back and, once he's, finding out that Kipnis wants to meet him and work with him, he said, "That's amazing. I really appreciate that. At the end of the day, we're all in this together and it's toward the same goal. So hopefully we can help each other in that way. And when you do have other people that are competing for the same thing, I think that elevates everybody." I think that's the key, right? So they're competing both of them are competing to get that job at second base. But if Kipnis doesn't win it, then hopefully he's able to remain on the team as, like I said, as a pinch hitter, a bench player, and he can accept that role, and not only accept it, but be of an assistance to Nico Hoerner. I think that would be the ideal situation for the Cubs this year. It's what I want to see. I think it pushes them more towards being a contending team. It's depth, it's the quality chemistry in the dugout that I think was somewhat missing a little bit last year, and so hopefully I'm hoping that element returns. All right, so we talked about the White Sox, and that there's a lot of talk going on about them, and I'm gonna be honest, man. Everybody knows that primarily I've always followed the Cubs, but you have to give credit where credit is due. And you have to acknowledge when a team is really making strides, and that is what is happening with Chicago, with the White Sox. On the South Side, the pieces are in place for something special over the next, I would say, 5 years. And one of the biggest parts of that is Eloy Jimenez. Got him from the Cubs, and last year he had, I thought, a spectacular rookie season. 31 dingers. I believe 79 RBI. I mean, just had a really strong season. I mean, a lot of times you see these guys, they come up and they're so highly touted and they're looked at as they're like these can't miss prospects, and it never comes together. But that wasn't the case for Jimenez. First season in the majors, 22 years old, 122 games, 31 home runs, like I said, 79 RBI, hit 267. I think that'll go up. Finished fourth in the Rookie of the Year voting. He only drew 30 walks, which is kind of, you kind of expect that from somebody who is so aggressive at the plate and knows about their power. He struck out 134 times. We kind of talked about how that works in today's game. It's more about that run production. And we expect to see the RBI go up for Jimenez, especially because it would appear that the White Sox lineup now is better equipped to score more runs. Could be got more guys on base, depending on where Jimenez is hit in the lineup. He may even see better pitching. Maybe if he's hit ahead of Edwin Encarnacion, we can see what happens. But one question, and you almost want to say like a goal that has been set, is that Eloy Jimenez was asked about whether he thought he could hit 50 home runs in a season. And he says pretty much, why not? And I have to agree with him. I mean, if you want to think about it, you're talking about a 22-year-old guy who in his first full season in the major leagues, playing only 122 games, was able to crank out 31. If he plays, say he doesn't even play every day, right? Which is like a pretty much a lost art. Nobody plays every day anymore. The guys who play 162 are so few and far between. It's insane, right? But say he plays 155, right? So we're talking about, well, I mean, what did I just say he played last year? He played 120 some odd games last year. Was it 122? We talk add 33 games to that. And also consider that he could make strides and become an even more effective and proficient home run hitter. Who is to say and what is to say that Eloy Jimenez cannot hit 19 more home runs in 33 additional games and cranking them out at a higher clip? This past season, he hit 31 home runs. We'll do some quick math just to break this down. So he hit, like I said, he hit 31 home runs and he played in 122 games. So if you look, I mean, this is not a, I mean, it's not as if he was cranking them out at this insane pace that is just totally unprecedented, you know, that he's hitting a home run almost once every 4 games, right? If you just peel that back to like once every 3 games, then now you know it's a faster clip, and it's not unprecedented. It's not something that we've never seen. We've seen guys hit home runs once every 3 games. It's fairly normal. I don't think that that's something that's out of the realm of possibility, especially for a talent like him, and especially if you consider the types of pitches that he may see this season if he is matched up or placed in the right position in the batting order, and there's another formidable hitter, another formidable hitter behind him, and you know, if he's hitting with runners and scoring, he's hitting with a guy on first base already. He should be getting better hitting situations, right? Because the lineup is just better. And you can't afford to put guys on base so he doesn't have to worry about being walked or pitched around, because Encarnacion is coming up behind him. There's already a guy on base. He comes up, Encarnacion's hitting behind him, or Abreu's hitting behind him. You can't just put guys on base. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that impacts him, as well as his just natural maturation as a hitter. So I think it's possible, man. I would not at all doubt that he can go for 50 this year. And the question actually wasn't even, will he hit 50 this year? The question was, can he hit 50, period? And with him setting the bar so high for himself in his first full season, I definitely think it's possible. And I'm interested in watching. It's exciting for Chicago baseball because we're looking at a young star that Chicago baseball fans, and notice I say Chicago baseball fans because I refuse to accept the whole concept of you can only like the Cubs or the Sox. But for Chicago baseball fans to get an opportunity to watch a star this caliber from the beginning of their career, hopefully the White Sox are able to lock him in and keep him as a White Sox for as long as it makes sense. But it's exciting to get a chance to watch that as it unfolds. All right, so let's switch gears a bit and let's talk about some football. Let's talk about the Bears situation. Obviously, the Bears are not the most prominent subject being discussed in Chicago right now. It's the offseason. We're not yet close enough to the draft to really, really be full speed ahead in that conversation. And the same thing can be said for free agency. But Chicago's fans are never going to stop talking about this quarterback situation until we feel comfortable about it. And hey, if you've been a Bears fan for any length of time, when is the last time you felt comfortable about your quarterback situation? So as I've had time to digest, right, and take a step back and look at what we got with Trubisky. I mean, we can all sit here and take shots and say Bears should have drafted Patrick Mahomes. They should have. The Bears should have stayed put and drafted Deshaun Watson. They should have. Better players than Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think that's even debatable. But at this point, I think we have to stop comparing Mitchell Trubisky to Mahomes and Watson because it really doesn't make any sense. And to be frank, he doesn't have to be either of those guys to be an asset to the squad. Unfortunately, he's so far off that he's not an asset to the team. So because that's the case, and because he is fairly deep into his career at this point, just finished up his second full season with this current head coach and play caller and so on and so forth, it is time to look at other options. Now, I'm not saying that you have to dump Trubisky, completely just give up on him and you just go to the next option. I'm not saying that. I think if I'm being rational and I'm, some months removed from this season and got an opportunity to not be making an emotional decision, I think it's a little premature to say, okay, you need to dump Trubisky. Now, it depends on what your options are, right? And I don't think that there is a realistic option out there for the Bears to go that route. The best option to me is Teddy Bridgewater, but all indications are that Teddy Bridgewater is going to command starter money. And because you invested so much in Mitchell Trubisky, and because he has probably very little trade value across the league, you would be giving up on Trubisky so quickly and basically saying that all of the draft picks and things that you sacrificed to be in position to draft him, you're just throwing that out of the window and you're just hitting reset. And that is tough. That's a lot of pressure, I think, also to put on Bridgewater. And not to say that he can't handle it, but I don't know. I think it's a little early to do something like that. And I love Bridgewater, but I'm not sure that you can do that now. I think better options right now is looking at someone like Jameis Winston, who may or may not be available in free agency this season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers could slap the franchise tag on Winston, which would keep him off of the market. But if they don't, which I don't think that that's a given, if they don't, you have to think about, is Jameis Winston a better option for the Bears than Mitchell Trubisky? And you can't just look at the statistics here. This situation is much deeper than that. It's much more complicated than that. Jameis Winston led the NFL in passing yardage and touchdowns this past season, but he also was right up there when it comes to interceptions. Now, far more interceptions than Trubisky, but the thing you have to realize is that he threw the ball a great deal more than Trubisky. Part of that is because the Bucs were down a lot. I'm sorry, he didn't lead the league in touchdown passes, led the league in interceptions. He led the league in passing yards with 5,109, and he threw 30 interceptions, which is a lot. But he still did throw 33 touchdown passes. Had a completion rate of 60.7, which is not great. Trubisky's completion percentage was much higher, but Winston went downfield more, which is a higher risk pass for sure. And Trubisky was more dinking and dunking. And you also have to have watched these games. As a person who literally watched all of these games, all of the Bears games, it's not just the interceptions. It's not just the fumbles or turnovers. For Trubisky, the part that is maddening for you, if you are a Bears fan, if you are following this team, is the amount of just flat missed open receivers. I cannot count how many times Taylor Gabriel, Anthony Miller had guys beat on routes that could have very well been touchdowns, could have very well changed the entire tenor of a game. And I watched Trubisky airmail passes to those guys. And it's very difficult to quantify how impacting those sequences are. Because yes, as a fan, you're sitting there watching and going, he missed the pass. Oh my God, that was a touchdown. You just put that on the money. But when you're a player on that team, you have to think that those guys are thinking like, do we even have confidence in this guy? Because if you're a receiver, I just beat my guy. I just won my matchup. I just won my mini game. I now am depending on this guy to put that ball on me so that I can make a play. And he hasn't shown the ability to be able to do that. So you're now worried. And that's why I think the leadership qualities and that ability to get guys to follow you is so important at this position. And if you ask me, I feel that Jameis Winston has more of that charisma. He has more of that command of a huddle than Trubisky. Winston has had his problems off the field. He's like still in crab legs, and we all know the situations, right? But the one thing that I've noticed about this guy since college and into the NFL is that players will follow him. His teammates, his offensive unit will follow him. He has a natural leadership ability. He has these natural leadership qualities that I don't necessarily see in Trubisky. Here's the thing. Is there another team out there that will definitively give Jameis Winston an opportunity to score? I mean, to start and say, you're our starter. We're bringing you in here. This is what we're bringing you in here for. You know, obviously, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise tag him, that's what they're saying to him, that you're not going to slap the franchise tag on a guy who's not your starter. But is there another team? So say, for instance, the Bucs don't slap franchise tag on him and they allow him to become a free agent. Is there another team that's going to compete with the Bears to get Jameis Winston in as their starter? And the thing of that is that the Bears are probably not in a position to hand over the starting job to Winston. At best, they're probably offering him an opportunity to compete. And they've already said that coming into training camp, Mitchell Trubisky is going to be their starter. So in essence, that actually kind of handicaps what they can do or who they can go after, because you've already verbally committed to this guy. So whomever you bring in, you got to be bringing them in, and this person has to understand that they're going to be a backup to start the season, and they have to either wait for Trubisky to falter or to get hurt. And I don't know if Jameis Winston's going to want to do that because he's been starting most of his career. Had a little brief time where he lost his job, came back and got it. For the most part, he's been a starter. So because of that, this may not even matter. And the Bears may have to look at other options, less attractive options. They may have to look at guys like Marcus Mariota, whom I don't hate, right? I don't hate. I think there's still something left there to be had with him. But to me, he's not as proven as Jameis Winston. He doesn't have the same arm talent as Jameis Winston. And I don't think he's the same level of a leader as Jameis Winston, which that's the part that really, really is getting me with Jameis Winston. That's the part that I feel is the most attractive, because the Bears need offensive leadership in a major way. They have defensive leadership. The Bears, in my opinion, have a Super Bowl caliber defense already. They need somebody on the field who is an offensive leader, and they don't have that. And obviously that's supposed to come from the quarterback position, and you just don't have it with Mitch. Mitch is not, he does not carry this aura of confidence that bleeds out onto his team. He doesn't have that it factor. And I don't know that he's going to magically get it this season. I feel that if this was a skill and a trait that Trubisky had, that we'd have seen it already. And we have not seen it. We have not. I mean, flashes don't get it. Flashes don't get it. Flashes of solid play don't get it. if you look over, and like even Trubisky's numbers are like deceiving. Like if you look at the 2018 season, you say, oh, well, he had 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Well, he got a lot of that in one little pocket of games where you had to, like I always say, you had to have seen these games. You can't just look at these numbers. Trubisky has not put together a stretch of consistency yet that would lead us to believe that you should be comfortable with him and you should be committing to him in the offseason, saying he's our guy. We'll see. But I like to throw that Jameis Winston concept out there. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. If you feel that it is a smart addition, is it a smart pursuit? If you had to compare Jameis Winston, Mitchell Trubisky, and you could have your pick for the Bears moving forward, who would it be? My pick would be Jameis Winston. I know it's probably seemingly bold, but that would be my guy. All right, but let's switch gears yet again. And we're going to go to basketball this time. Not really going to talk necessarily specifically the Bulls. I want to talk about the Hall of Fame. And we had some recent finalists announced, but I'm not necessarily going to talk about the people who are going in. Obviously, we know, the rock solid locks, right? I want to talk about somebody who didn't get the call, who did not make it as even a finalist to be a Hall of Famer. And that person is Chris Bosh. I want to know, and I'm gonna let you guys know what I think, but I want to know, do you think that Chris Bosh deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Fame? I want to know. I think Chris Bosh is one of those guys who he is the lightning rod for this type of conversation. Like he's one of those guys who people like to debate whether or not he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. So we'll talk about the finalist. Finalist is Kobe Bryant. I mean, yeah, we even need to discuss it, right? We already know it's going to happen. Tamika Catchings, I think she should be a lock. Tim Duncan, we don't even need to discuss it. It's going. Kevin Garnett, Kim Mulkey, Eddie Sutton, Barbara Stevens, and Rudy Tomjanovich. I mean, I'm feeling like all of these people are. I mean, you don't really see somebody like like Barbara Stevens, 41 seasons as a head coach, 5th women's coach to win 1,000 games. You don't see people like her or even Mulkey, first person to win a national championship as a player, assistant coach, and a head coach. You don't see people like that even get acknowledged as finalists if they're not going to be inducted. So I expect them all to get in, right? And I don't have a problem with any of them. But I gotta tell you, I think Chris Bosh is one of the most disrespected players in like recent basketball history. And I am not trying to say some people will say, oh, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, he's not on their level. There's no way in the world he deserves to go in. Their first ballot, no doubt. He doesn't deserve to go in like that. Just because he's not Kobe Bryant, just because he's not Kevin Garnett, just because he wasn't, Tim Duncan, which I don't think the gap is as significant between him and Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett as maybe some people. Clearly, those guys are better players than Chris Bosh, and clearly those guys have more impressive careers. But I don't think it's a situation where Chris Bosh can't play on the same. It's like he's playing a whole different entirely lower level game than those guys. Those guys are better players. Those guys had better careers. But that doesn't mean that Chris Bosh doesn't deserve to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. All first ballot Hall of Famers are not created exactly equal. And if you look over Chris Bosh's career, he's an 11-time All-Star. 11. There are so many people who are in the Hall of Fame who were not all-stars that many times. Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill. That's just two off the top of my head. I think Jason Kidd's a 10-time all-star. And then now let's spin this back. Chris Bosh played an integral role on 2 NBA championship teams. 2 of them. He's 2006, 2007 All NBA team. And I think what happens is from 2010 on, right, when he joined the Miami Heat, people look at the fact that his numbers dipped. Like especially all of his numbers dipped. Scoring, rebound, they all dipped. And he left and went to the Heat in the prime of his career. He's only 26 years old when he came to Miami, right? First year he averages 18.7, 8.3 rebounds, 18.7.9 rebounds the next year. Then it starts to dip down, 16.6, 16.2. Then the health issues started to happen. And I think you look at that, right? And you look at, okay, he played 13 seasons in the NBA, and 2 of those seasons he missed significant time because of injuries. He's obviously had the heart issues. But over his career, 19 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 2 assists, a block a game. He became a fantastic, I won't say a fantastic. He became a capable 3-point shooter. He's always an efficient scorer. I think he was an underrated defender, even though he played out of position most of his career, because I would say he's not a prototypical center. Never was. But I just don't understand how somebody can suggest that an 11-time All-Star who played a huge role in 2 championship teams is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, I put it like, I get it. Chris Bosh is going to get in. I believe he's going to get in. If he doesn't get in, there's a travesty. And maybe they're looking at the class, right? Maybe they're saying Kobe, Garnett, Duncan. Yeah, Bosh doesn't match with those guys. And because the other guys that are going in, other people that are going in, Tom Janovich is going in as a player and coach. He won championships with the Rockets as a head coach. I get it. I get it. Heart of a champion. I got it. Obviously, Tamika Catchings is going in. She has just been a fantastic contributor to the overall game. And then you got a couple other people who are going in as like these career accomplishments and having touched different levels of the game. With Kim Mulkey, Eddie Sutton, he's got 50 million wins as a head coach. Barbara Stevens, I get it. But when you're talking about just regular like players who who they did their contribution to the game almost entirely in the NBA as players, when you're talking about Duncan and Garnett and Kobe, I get it. Bosh is not really on that level. But like I said, I don't think that you have to say because he's not on that level, he can't go in as a first ballot guy in the same class with them. I think it is yet another and yet the latest example of Chris Bosh disrespect. Bosh is so disrespect. And I hated that this is the way with this guy, right? Because he already had to eat that his career ended prematurely. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't feel that sorry for somebody who's as rich and he's very blessed to be healthy enough to still be able to enjoy his family and these type of things. And, because he's still a young man by life standards. The guy is only 35 years old. He won't even be 36 until March. So he's still a young man and has a lot of life left to live, God willing, But from a professional standpoint, he already has to live with the fact that his career ended at 31 years old. And he wanted to try to play again, but couldn't get medically cleared to play, and so on and so forth. He already has to live with that. Bosh sacrificed a lot to be a part of the Miami Heat because when he was with the Raptors, he was a killer. I mean, the last year with the Raptors, he averaged 24 points and just under 11 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists. He shot 36% from three. Didn't shoot that many of them, but then he shot just under 52% from the field. He had literally just had the best season of his career, right? So he goes to the Heat because he wants to win a championship, because he wants to add to his overall legacy. This is why he went there. And I'm thinking he's probably thinking that I get overall more appreciation as an athlete, as a player, if I can say that I won a championship or multiple championships. We know the whole scene, not 3, not 4, not 5. This was part of what he wanted to do. And that type of thing is supposed to improve your Hall of Fame resume. But yet we got guys like, and I'm not putting this guy down and saying he doesn't deserve to be a Hall of Famer, but yet we got guys like Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill who were never significant parts of, they either didn't win a championship or were significant parts of a championship team. And those guys are going in like first ballot guys, and they're getting in. And this guy who has a far more significant, I think, team resume than these guys. And I mean, you look at Tracy McGrady. McGrady went in 2017, right? Which was pretty much, I believe that was first ballot. His last year in the league was the 11-12 season. He played in China in 12-13. So you have to count that year. He couldn't have gone in until he stopped playing altogether anyway, because you got to remember the Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame is the Basketball Hall of Fame. It is not the NBA Hall of Fame. So it's when you stop being active as a player in the world, as a professional player. So he goes in there, and you look at Grant Hill. Now, don't get me, I love Grant Hill. I think Grant Hill is like the guy who young basketball fans, they really have no idea how good he was. Him and Penny, they have no idea what they missed and what could have happened if were it not for injury. So I'm not dissing Grant Hill, right, at all. But Grant Hill went in 2018, which I think maybe he didn't go in first ballot. I think it was the year after that. Or maybe they hadn't quite. Yeah, I think it wasn't first ballot because they changed it where it's like, it's weird. Now, it used to be like 5 seasons. Now it's like more like 4 years. Something weird, right? My point is, if Grant Hill is in as a 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, but never sniffed championship level, never. And if you look at the whole like second half of his career, nowhere near an All-Star. Nowhere near. I mean, Grant Hill's prime was the first 6 years of his career. And then after that, we're talking about significant drop-off. If Grant Hill's a Hall of Famer at all, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be, Chris Bosh is the first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's all I got to say about it. I don't know how else we can break that down. And like I said, I would love to hear what you guys think and what other people think about this. And because he's disappointed, because that's kind of what brought this on. That's what made me kind of explore this as a topic, because he's disappointed in the fact that he is not a Hall of Famer, and that he was left off as a finalist. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I would be disappointed as well. So like I said, I would love to see and hear what you guys have to say about this and other things that we have discussed here on this episode of the show. I am going to come back and check these comments throughout the day. And if you missed any part of this show, this is something that we're going to do moving forward. We did this with Admi Bro, with my man Nelson Blake. And shout out to Nelson. We both decided that we would kind of go in a different direction in terms of, letting him have full control over the show, over Admi Bro, and him just taking over it. And he's done that and really killed it with the NBA 2K My Team content. So congratulations to him. He is coming up on 1,000 subscribers like gangbusters. I envision he'll probably have it even before the end of the month. My man Smooth Creation says that he believes that if Bosh had stayed in Toronto, he would be a Hall of Famer. I would have to agree. And that's really, think about that though, man. That's a shame. That is a shame that we always talk about players don't want to win. We always say that, right? Guys don't want to win. They just in it for the money. This is one of the main things that people say about professional athletes. But then you got a guy who sacrificed money, because when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh went to Miami, they all took less money than what they could have gotten if they had gone someplace individually, and all of them took the absolute max contracts. So they all took less money to go and be a part of a team that they felt had the greatest chance to win. He did that, sacrificed numbers, sacrificed attention, sacrificed all of that to get the 2 championships that they got. And I think Smooth Creation, myself, and anybody who was thinking logically would have to say he made that decision and it ended up costing him in the way that people look at him. Now, I also think I have to add in there, that the premature end of his career because of the physical ailments, that also played a part. But if he had stayed in Toronto and had all of these straight seasons, all in Toronto, averaging 25, 20, 23, 24 points a game, I think at that point, I think he still, even if his career ends early, like it did, if the numbers that he would have continued to put up, I think, yes, I think you're right. I think he would have been a Hall of Famer. And I think that's a shame. I think that is really a shame that his team focus and his team accomplishments are being drowned out. Sean Singletary said, "What's happening? Good to see this daily content." Yes, sir. I appreciate that. I'm trying. I'm trying it. It takes a lot of commitment and scheduling and that sort of thing to do what I'm trying to do, which what I'm trying to do is really probably not even advisable for most people. But I had to realize I'm not most people. I do things kind of crazy, and sometimes I got to do them and stick to them and have them either succeed or fail before I know. But I got to try. So I'm allocating this content across several different channels, so that people can see what they want to see. Sean, I appreciate you. I saw you yesterday. You were there on the Fight Guys channel, and you took a look at that video that I did there, talking about Edwin Valero versus Gervonta Davis. I appreciate you stepping up there. But like I said earlier in the show, and not as many people were there to hear it, take a look at the description. The channels that I'm dealing with are kind of there across a couple. Is that when you come out and you do a 2K video, and people see you and they subscribe and they like it for that reason, they want to see 2K videos, and they may not necessarily be interested in Madden. They may not necessarily be interested in MLB The Show. They may not be interested in boxing or MMA. But if that's something that you, and when I say you, I mean me, want to continue to talk about and share with people, you may have to do that on a different platform. You may have to do that in a different place. And so, yes, I am still writing with Forbes, but even there, I don't necessarily get an opportunity to talk about everything that I have an opinion on. And that's the cool thing about YouTube. It gives you that opportunity to share your opinion no matter what. So we're doing that. But I was giving out some congratulations to Nelson for what he's doing with Admi Bro. Like I said, I think he'll be partnered I think he'll have 1,000 subscribers, maybe even before the end of the month. And definitely once that 2K21 pre-release period starts to roll around, I think we'll definitely see him starting to really climb and that sort of thing, because we all know he gives really thought-provoking content when it comes to my team and just pretty much everything. Those breakdowns of those players are the most in-depth that you can find there on his channel. So I would definitely, if you have not subscribed yet to At Me Bro, and you love NBA 2K and specifically the My Team mode, I would definitely encourage you to do that and subscribe. But yeah, I'm trying to do what I can do here. This is Chicago sports and sports in general because we talk a little bit about Chris Bosh. And then, but I got some stuff coming for 2K and Madden and specific and best, especially MLB The Show. I'm really trying to focus things based on the season that we're in, right? Uh, Baseball season is coming up, and I love the show. Like the show is last year, the show was my favorite game. So throughout 2019, the show was my favorite game. It's the one I played the most of all sports games, of all games. So, and I'm really looking forward to doing that again this year. So, there is a baseball channel there in that description. If you dig baseball and baseball gaming, I encourage you to subscribe. And then, of course, as Madden season rolls around, I started to do a mess around with that a little bit more. And then, of course, 2K is always going to be 2K. And so there's a 2K channel link there. But you know what I didn't put in the description? I didn't put in the Fight Guys. We already have like almost 6,000 subscribers on that channel. It's myself and partner, Peter Khan. I do most of the MMA talk. I do some boxing talk, but he and I get together and we talk boxing together there. We've done a lot of cool interviews. I had an opportunity to interview Manny Pacquiao. He did the interview with Keith Thurman. We talked to Demetrius Andrade. There's a really cool interview with Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe discussing the the Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz fight. We have some other just singular videos there as well. And then there's a wrestling channel in there as well. So like I said, it's all seasonal and it all goes based off of whatever is being discussed. So pick what you like. and subscribe based on that. So but that's all I really have for you guys today. I appreciate you guys coming through and taking a look. And I'll be back tomorrow. Now, here's the plan, right? So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I jump on at about 9 a.m. and I'll probably put this somewhere on my channel. Jump on at about 9 a.m. and I'll rock on to about 10. And this is Central Time, of course. But then on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, the schedule's a little bit different because I got some different commitments. And that one I'll be on for an hour still, but it'll be from noon Central Time until 1 p.m. Central Time. And as I said also earlier, if you missed the show, watching it live is still cool because I'm going to break it out into the individual segments, and then those will go up throughout the day. So you'll be able to find that content there as well. So as I said, I appreciate you guys watching. As always, God bless and peace.